welcome back, everyone. Again, CGI is proud to be a sponsor of the Tech Talk series this afternoon. As I mentioned earlier, CGI has been a part of the Pittsburgh community now for over 30 years. We are a global organization of over 70,000 individuals providing IT services in high-end business and IT consulting, systems integration, application development and maintenance, infrastructure management, as well as having 150 IP-based services and solutions. CGI's merger with Summa, as I mentioned earlier, strengthens our capabilities for our clients here in the region. With almost 400 resources in the area, we invite you to get to know us at cgi.com. Our next set of speakers are CGIers themselves. I want to welcome back Matt Jones from earlier this morning and Suren Vardhanidi. Thank you very much. And yes, we know if you washed your hands. Thanks.
No, it's good. Thanks, Doug. Again, I'm Suren Vardhanidi with CGI for the last 12 years. I'm one of the BI practice leaders. Again, if you haven't already figured out from my accent, I'm also from South, actually, from Atlanta. I travel here a lot. So today's topic is we know if you wash your hands. Again, it's kind of going with the more innovative titles, I guess, that Matt came up with this. You can guess, I guess, the title. It's more around the patient care and then how IoTs can help in the healthcare to just kind of do the surveillance and like all the surveillance of the whole ecosystem, healthcare ecosystem. So just to kind of give you a background, we do, again, just an interesting fact around IoT is like by 2020, it's expected to be around 50 billion devices connected to the internet. What that means is the devices need to communicate back and forth with the whole network, the whole ecosystem and all that. It needs like a lot of robust IoT framework and a platform. So at CGI, we do have that kind of a framework that we created. Just not only just for the health in general, this is kind of an example of our whole IoT network and platform, but we do provide in retail, public spaces like airports, other areas. But this particular one is around the healthcare ecosystem within a particular hospital or large healthcare facilities. Just to kind of give you some of the benefits is mostly like to monitor the patient care, patient safety, and then some of the operational things like the building maintenance, the room, whether they're cleaned up or not, those kind of things. So just at a very high level of framework, again, it contains three major components. One is that on the top, like the devices itself, like the whole sensors and the equipment and the user devices. From the enterprise point of view, also hold the wearables type of things. It can collect the information from this user patient wearables. And then the second component is the whole, this is kind of our proprietary IoT reference model, which can capable of getting the operational aspects of it as well as the decision support analytical aspects of it. And then the third component is more of like the whole, the so-called the hardware stuff, basically the cloud hosting, the mobile device management, and other aspects of it. So at a very high level, that's kind of our framework. And then we do have kind of a plug and play. This is kind of the current framework uses the ThoughtWire ambient machine intelligence. The platform is developed in such a way that, as like Matt mentioned this morning, the things are moving so fast so that if you have your own machine learning libraries, components, and all that, definitely you can plug and play. So we use the use case that Matt is going to talk about is around this similar setup, but again, like this is a little more advanced than when we did the use case. The use case was 2 years old, but we improved a lot on the platform side. So if anybody is interested, we can definitely share the rest of the information around the platform. And then Matt is going to talk about the use case.
Thank you, Suren. All right, good. Y'all can hear me. I was wondering if I would be loud enough. Here, I might actually can click it. There we go. Just put it right there. Too much caffeine today. I get click happy. All right, so good today for this presentation is I only have 2 slides. So I'm going to tell you stories because I thought it said TED Talk, not Tech Talk, and I didn't build anything. And then realized, hey, slides, cool. All right, anyways, so what I want to tell you about this story is this was a project we did where we actually partnered with an IoT device vendor, the company that made the devices, and they actually had a proprietary mesh network type technology where they could build their own specifically engineered devices for specifically engineered use cases. Does that make sense? So they were the manufacturer. And we went together for a leading healthcare organization. And what we wanted to do was we came in and we wanted to, this was a few years back, and it was all about improving the quality of care, and making sure we get paid because our scores are great and all that kind of good stuff, right? So we wanted to improve the quality of care of patients through real-time monitoring of things like staff actions, hospital environment, equipment location, that kind of stuff. So what I wanted to do was tell you a little bit about what we did, and specifically around 3 use cases, and I might tell you about some of the others that we did, but it was fun stuff. Okay, so we worked with the network vendor, and what we had is we had an environment where we wanted to put all of these IoT devices across the facilities in the units, in every one of the units to monitor this information and provide real-time analytics and historical reporting related to a number of different use cases. So the first use case, and I've already given you my answer, but I always like to ask people, hey, what's the best way to stop the spread of disease? Washing your hands, right? So what, in the hospital scenario, they have really strict requirements around hand washing. Right? That it would be nice if it was everywhere in this world. But in the hospital, they really have them. And so whenever you're a medical staff, you walk into a room, you actually supposed to wash your hands right when you walk in. And you have to wash your hands when you leave the room. Does it make sense? A lot of hand washing takes place. But what we wanted to make sure was, are they really doing it? So we wanted to, one, improve the compliance to those regulations, and also to be able to report that, as well as to be able to correct people that did not, behave like they were supposed to. And so what we built a scenario and a solution for was we took the ID badges that the medical staff used, and we implanted that IoT device inside the medical badge. So the badge itself was an IoT device. And so then we also had sensors on all the walls and all the rooms and stuff that we could know where that badge was at any time. So we would know when the event happened that that person moved from this room into this room. We also made that badge talk to the soap dispenser. So the soap dispenser was an IoT device, and we could track whether or not this badge was there and executed the pump action on the soap dispenser. I guess we didn't get to the point where we looked to see that there was soap in it, but okay, fine, but they pumped it, right? And so within that activity, so the minute your badge walked into the room, a timer started. Okay, not only there, but the timer started in the cloud. And within 12 seconds of you I think it was 12, might have been 15, I can't remember. But 3 seconds, come on, give me a break. Within that time period, if we didn't get that message from the badge and the soap dispenser that you washed your hands, you're logged for noncompliance. Boom, you show up on the unit nurse, head nurse's dashboard. You can go all the way up to the president of the healthcare organization, and a little light on your badge starts flashing. I always like to call that the nasty badge, right? Hey, if you see somebody in their hand that's flashing, don't shake their hand, right? Don't you wish that places like this, nasty badge would be nice, right? But so that was one scenario, and we saw a dramatic increase in the soap dispensing without even turning on the badge. Right? I mean, just telling them, hey, you know what? That badge knows now. I mean, all over the place, man. Hey, soap, I bet soap levels just skyrocketed purchasing, right? But it was a scenario, right? So that was one thing. Really cool, because you think about it. I literally knew, did you wash your hands, right? But then we said, okay, we want to address another use case. And in this use case, we want to ensure that nurse rounding is happening in the rooms, right? And if you don't know what nurse rounding is, it really just means that a nurse went and checked on the patient every hour during the day and every 2 hours at night. Why? Because you want to make sure they're not dead, I guess. And then number two is it come to find out that a lot of lawsuits and legal situations that occur when your grandmother died in the hospital was because you said nobody came to check on her that last 4 hours, that she was alive. If you'd have come and seen her, she wouldn't be dead right now, right? Well, now we can tell you exactly who came when, how long they stayed, and the duration of the room. But some of the cool stuff we did was we had big monitors in the unit, and it would show a layout of the unit. We would color code each room, red, green, or yellow. Really pretty, imaginative, right? Red, green, or yellow. Green was, hey, I've been. Yellow was, you better hurry up and go in there. And red means it's crap, you're in trouble, right? But you didn't want that clock to be counted if there wasn't a patient in the room, right? Because who cares if you go to the room and it's empty? So we had things like the same ID badges, room sensors, right? We didn't tag a device on the patient, which we could have, but we didn't. But we put them in the bed. So we knew if the patient was in the bed by the amount of pressure being exerted on the bed. And we used that to identify that the patient was actually in the room, and we did all of the rounding. Does that make sense? You red, green, yellow, all the way up. So at any time, in real time, people across the entire organization at the unit level, all the way up, could see and monitor and track where are we, right, in real time, and do something about it. We also did a scenario where equipment location. So come to find out that medical staff like to hide pieces of equipment so they know where they're at when they need them for their patients. And so you end up with like EKG machines, and I'm not a medical person, I try to avoid medical people if possible, but like EKG machines. There'd be like 4 of them in one vacant room. Somebody knew where they were at, but nobody else did. So we needed the real time, where is this EKG machine? What room is it in? Is there a patient in there? Who put it there, right? Also tracking, has it left a floor? Because they're not supposed to leave from this floor to this floor. Who took it, right? Who is the last person to see this equipment that's missing now, right? You see there's all kinds of value in being able to track the person and the equipment and its location at that point in time. Does that make sense? So these were some examples of some use cases we did using IoT in the healthcare space. Some others we started to, but we never did. Like we could tell you if the patient was falling down. So you remember that old good commercial, help, I'm falling, or I've fallen and I can't get up? Well, what if you already knew, right? Because you put the badge on the patient, right? The little thing on the patient, and you could tell based on their velocity and stuff of those sensor readings if they were falling down, so you could route somebody to pick them up before they ever fell down. Pretty interesting stuff, right? We also did environmental factors, like is the ambient light correct, and is the temperature right, so that you're comfortable in your room, so that you give adequate reviews and stuff. Does that make sense? So all kinds of cool information that we could use. And the thing about it was, and I know this is really geeky, so just let me tell you about it. I needed a slide quick last night. Give me a break, okay? And so what this means is we built an administrative portal that you could, put new devices out in the wild, turn them on, turn them off. You get a new patient, you get a new staff worker, whatever. You have to be able to provision and revoke the devices of all the various kinds. We built the actual infrastructure where the local mesh networks in each of the locations transmitted to the cloud, all of that device. All of it was running in AWS at the time. And then we also built the real-time dashboard portal for all of that stuff. We also learned a really important thing when it came to IoT and analytics was there are two worlds when it comes to real-time monitoring and analytics and historical reporting. You have to think about them very differently, right? Because in a historical kind of reporting scenario, you're going to log this data, you're going to go show me everything in the last, one day, by this patient, by this, and you want to see that, right? That requires a storage mechanism and a way to think about I store the data so that performance is good for that. 12 seconds from here to the cloud, the timer starts back to the badge. Do you really have time to even write that record anywhere? So you start talking about in-memory analytics and in-memory processing of stuff. And what we learned, which it's gotten a little better today, technology has improved in this aspect, but some of these things that we were using back then, I mean, we had to make specific things for, I need to store this use case's information for real-time analysis this way. And then here for historical, here. Everything was based on latency. So you had to make different technological decisions based on how fast the data was coming in and how fast you wanted to read it. Does that make sense? So it was not one size fits all. I think somebody said that this morning. Great person, by the way. Anyways, that was me. Anyways, okay. And so also, one thing that we like to tell about this is you talk about big data, right? We said it's not volume and that kind of stuff because each one of these messages are tiny. But one of those things, velocity, I'm so proud of this number, but we processed 170,000 messages every second with this solution. And that's a pretty high number. I still even think today that's a pretty good because you think about all of that. And that was nonstop. Hospitals don't stop all day long moving and forth. So that's kind of like the solution we did. Does that make sense? Do y'all have any questions? I know this was probably the shortest tech talk. Yes, question. Step to the front.
I actually have two questions, and you may
You
not know the
can.
answers.
I always have an answer.
Was the audience for which you were measuring the hand washing simply the nursing staff? Or
No,
did
it was every member of the medical staff, or everybody that went in.
Okay,
Right.
and what was done in terms of change management to get people to adapt to this? I assume particularly amongst the more elevated doctors, that may have not been a popular thing.
Yes. I don't know if I have the complete answer, but most of that decisioning and all of this came directly from the very top of the organization, so it wasn't really a choice.
Okay,
It wasn't unpopular in certain segments,
okay,
but does that make sense?
yeah.
So
yeah.
a lot of times, like we've seen, we've done stuff, other things in the healthcare space, like peer review solutions and that kind of stuff. It always has to be from that like chief of staff
Yes.
kind of level down to make
Yes.
you got to have a high-ranking doctor to tell the doctors to do it. Does that make sense?
Yes. Do you have any sense if there was anything done in addition to just having
That
high
that I
ranking
don't know
Okay.
because I'm a geek to begin with. Sorry.
Thanks.
Other questions? Yes.
Yeah, so was there any...
Can you
Oh, yeah,
give me the microphone?
So was there any attempt to look at the outcome of measuring all this information?
Yes,
In terms
that-
of like
that-
hospital-acquired infection rates going
Yes,
up or down?
yes,
or
but
whatever?
that was down the road.
Right.
To make sense, first, there was no data. So this was about actually creating that data and giving enough data over time. That was the next step, right? This is just, I think in one of the presentations we talked about how, not we, but somebody else talked about how they spend a lot of time generating new sources of data. This was purely one of those, hey, we're going to generate this new source of data that lets me real time, but it has a lot of uses going. downstream, right?
Yeah, I work with both of them, so this is not a predefined question that Matt wanted me to ask. But
That probably means it's really hard, but yes.
right. So this is a product that CGI has, and what it takes to implement it in a new environment. How much time it took for you to take this and implement in a hospital? What are the difficulties?
So, all right, so I'm gonna let him hit the product
Okay.
thing, because, when I was involved with the actual creation,
Okay.
right? So from scratch. And so from a from scratch perspective, it took about 18 months
Okay.
to put together. And a lot of it was, engineering of the devices, making sure that the devices would actually work in this scenario and hold up, and how we get the messaging, and, and it was a few years ago, so there was some technological challenges. So you see some words on here like, the Hadoop and the Solar, and Cassandra and Storm, and some of those things. They were not at that 2.0 version number that we talked about. Some of them were not even at the 1.0. So it truly was experimental almost when we built
Okay.
that scenario.
So now if you take this framework and
So now this framework.
If you're looking at the whole hospital system, it's definitely going to be like at least
How about
6 to 9 months. But implementation of the platform, and if you want to run a POC, normally we do it like in 12 to 18 weeks time frame. Just to implement a small division, implant the devices, and then implement again, everything is in a cloud-based. And at that point, definitely it was not that cloud-based, and it is cloud-based, and very quickly you can turn around and produce this result. So,
Other questions? Good. The hook has pulled me across. It's like that Blues Traveler song. Remember that?
thank you.